Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Asura at Asura MBTI, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about repressed functions. And for those of you who don't know what repressed functions are, they are the last active function in each of the 16 personality types. So for example, the INTP has dominant introverted thinking, secondary extroverted intuition, tertiary introverted sensing, and repressed extroverted feeling. The repressed function tends to be one that we resort to or deal with during times of stress. It's not something that is actively part of us. Well, it is actively part of us, but it's not something that we like to present about ourselves. Let's get started. I'm going to start off by talking about a term known as the grip. And when a person falls into a grip in Myers-Briggs type indicator terminology, this generally refers to A, when that person falls into a period of overusing their repressed function and underusing their primary function, or B, overuses their primary function. When a person overuses their primary function and doesn't allow any room for the repressed function to grow, this can cause problems subconsciously that the person's not going to realize. I'm going to start off by talking about repressed introverted sensing, and repressed introverted sensing is found in the ENFP and ENTP personality types. Repressed introverted sensing is going to show itself as being pessimistic. A person with repressed introverted sensing who is in a grip or during a time of stress might appear to obsess over small details. They might withdraw themselves. They might try to isolate themselves. They also might try to present themselves as experts. I'm good at this. I know what I'm talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. I've seen all of this before. You don't know any of this. And they might try to blame others. They might say, this is not my fault. I have the ideas, I have the solutions, but it's not my problem. You're doing something wrong and I'm not. And they are often hard to get along with when an ENFP, ENTP with repressed introverted sensing and a grip goes through something like this, because they are often unwilling to see anyone else's opinion. Because introverted sensing is very known for having strict thoughts and ideals, whereas extroverted intuition, their usual lead function is not. It's used to being open and free and expressive with thoughts and ideas. So when they fall into this and they become restricted, they tend to be unmoving. It almost resembles the introverted thinking of an INTP, ISTP, whereas I'm thinking this way and no other way is going to be allowed. Because if it disagrees what I have to think, why, it doesn't make sense because I know I'm right. Alright, next on the list is repressed extroverted sensing, which is going to be the repressed function of the INTJ and INFJ. Now, repressed extroverted sensing, being the opposite of introverted intuition, is going to have a tendency to look over minor details. They're going to skip things that shouldn't be skipped. One of the things we note about introverted intuition is that it often skips to the end. It often likes to think of the end and then work its way back. A lot of times when doing this, it can overlook the things that fill in those minor details, the things that are important to that goal. But other problems that are common with repressed extroverted sensing are feelings of worthlessness, whereas the person with repressed extroverted sensing is going to be very harsh on themselves. And it's not always that they feel worthless, it's that they're perfectionistic almost, where they're not feeling that they can live up to their full potential. They can often desire a sense of control of their immediate surroundings. It's very uncomfortable for someone with repressed extroverted sensing to usually be in loud, crowded environments because they feel that they can't fully control their immediate surroundings. They may enjoy or ignore sensation-heavy activities. This means that the person with repressed extroverted sensing may overindulge in things like food, alcohol, sex, pain, pleasure, anything along those lines, or they may simply try to completely eliminate things like that from their lifestyle in an attempt to allow introverted intuition to take over. A person with repressed extroverted sensing may, on purpose, avoid loud places, obnoxious parties, things like that. One final note on repressed extroverted sensing is that it's very easy for the INTJ and INFJ to feel alone in a crowd, and the reason this is because when introverted intuition is at the lead, they tend to want to be in control of their immediate surroundings, and when there's a lot going on in their immediate surroundings, extroverted sensing has to process a lot more than it usually does. And what happens is it collects all this data and it tries to control it and predict the outcome through introverted intuition, And it's a lot like opening too many tabs on a computer. On a regular basis, an INTJ is opening 1 or 2 tabs. They're controlling their immediate surroundings. But when they are thrown into a setting with a lot of loud noises or a lot of people, it's the equivalent of opening 3 to 5 tabs, 6 to 10 tabs. It's a lot for them to handle. They're not used to it. It can be very stressful on the person with repressed extroverted sensing because it's almost what people like to refer to as sensory anxiety. It's not the exact same thing, but it is very similar. It is not as similar as someone who has autistic-like sensory anxiety, but it's very stressful on their entire mind and physical system to be in these kind of situations. Not only that, it is also very common for the INTJ, INFJ to feel this way because when they are in a crowd, the crowd around them is not going to think like they are. And the reason that is because INTJs and INFJs are typically very rare in society, making up combined only about 4 to 6% of the population. And with their forward thinking, they find it very hard to find people who have similar mindsets as them, who have similar futuristic thoughts, who are able to view society as we do. And when we're in these kinds of settings, when INTJs and INFJs are in this type of setting, it just feels off-putting. We are unrelatable to the people around us. And this isn't going to always be true, of course, but in my experience as an INTJ, and with INFJs I do know, they tend to feel like this. All right, on to the next one. Repressed Introverted Intuition. This is going to be the ESTP and the ESFP. Some major things to note about repressed introverted intuition are that they're generally going to avoid the future in general. They're going to avoid negative outcomes and feelings. They're just going to avoid things that aren't going to make them feel good in the present. They might end up projecting insecurities onto others. They will refuse to admit that something is of their own fault or flaws about themselves. The extroverted sensing dominant types might present themselves as overconfident. And the reason this is because they aren't as in tune with introverted intuition as some of the other types, and they tend to not think into the future. They tend to act on the now, and this can lead them to be overconfident in their ability in the now. So this can lead them to act without caution. Another thing that can be found in the repressed introverted intuitive types is they will have a fear of commitment, and that's because when you are unable to predict the future clearly, and you think something negative might come out, and you might get this negative feeling in your gut, that can be bad for the extroverted dominant type because they just tend to live in the present and they're not as worried about the future as the introverted intuitive types. They also might find themselves needing positive feedback or positive reinforcement more so than the other types. And this is because with extroverted sensing, they're usually in tune to their own ego. And this isn't to say they're all egotistical people. They tend to be very in tune with how they look and how society sees them and all these sorts of things. And that's generally how repressed introverted intuition is going to present itself in the extroverted sensing dominant types. All right, on to the final one for this specific video, and that's going to be repressed extroverted intuition. This is going to be found in the ISTJ and the ISFJ, and this one, in my personal experience, tends to take a lot more stress to get them to fall into a grip. This is just in my personal experience, but for the factual evidence part of this, I'm going to say that repressed extroverted intuitive types tend to want to overstructure their life or their immediate environment. And they might end up doing things like planning daily routines or having meals set for every single part of their life, or they might rehearse things, like if they're going to have a rehearsal or a play, or if that's something they don't exactly want to do, they'll sit in front of their mirror and practice it again and again and again, and they're going to avoid any change in their life because introverted sensing dominant types are very used to having structure and ideals and things like that, just what they're used to, what they're comfortable with. They don't exactly enjoy change, which is exactly what extroverted intuition is. Extroverted intuition is a shotgun of change and ideas, and introverted sensing dominant type isn't going to be comfortable with this, and they are going to show it a lot less so actively, in my opinion. I have seen ISTJs fall into a grip, but it is very, very difficult for that grip to excel to a point where they are literally overstructuring every part of their life. This is something I almost see in very few occasions for the unhealthy ISTJs and ISFJs. Alright, that's all I'm going to do on this one, and I am planning on doing another video for the repressed judging functions, Tai, Te, Phi, Fei. And one little side note I'd like to make before I close off this video is while I was searching up images to use for the repressed extroverted intuition part of this video, one of the first things that came up on Google when I typed in over-organized was a picture of a t-shirt for the ISTJ personality type, and I just thought that was a funny little connection or funny little thing that would happen. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more videos soon. Have a nice one.